The endless void of space stretched before the horizon, a lone ship drifting through the outermost edges of charted space. At the controls stood Callan Voss, his experienced hands guiding the vessel with steady precision. Decades of solitary exploration had left deep lines on his face, but the fire of curiosity still burned in his eyes. Proximity alert, the ship's AI chimed. Unknown structure detected. Callan's pulse quickened as he peered through the viewport. Nestled among the scattered debris was an ancient station, its hull marred by centuries of micrometeor impacts. Most of its lights were dark, yet its design was unmistakably alien. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered, adjusting his course. "Let's see what secrets you're hiding." The docking procedure was tense. The station's systems barely responded, operating on the last vestiges of power. As the airlock groaned open, Callan double-checked his suit's seals. He had no way of knowing if the station's atmosphere was safe, if it even had one. Stepping into the dim corridor, his helmet lights pierced through layers of dust. The air was thin but breathable. His footsteps echoed through the abandoned halls as he moved from room to room, catching glimpses of a civilization long gone. Then, in what looked like a medical bay, he froze. A single cryopod hummed softly, miraculously, still operational. Through its frost-covered glass, he could make out a small, blue-skinned figure. "Holy hell," he whispered, brushing away the condensation. Inside was a child, a girl no older than 6, her features alien yet hauntingly beautiful. His mind raced. Who was she? Where had her people gone? With trembling fingers, he accessed the pod's controls. The child's vitals were stable, but the power levels were critical. Within hours, the pod would fail completely. Callan exhaled heavily, rubbing a hand over his face. He wasn't a father. Hell, he'd spent most of his life avoiding people, let alone adopting one. But he couldn't leave her to die. "All right, little one," he murmured. "Looks like you're coming with me." The next few hours were a blur as he carefully transferred the cryopod to the horizon. As the station faded into the distance, a strange weight settled in his chest. Responsibility. The thawing process was agonizingly slow. He paced the medbay, alternating between monitoring the girl's vitals and cursing his own impulsiveness. What if she was dangerous? What if she couldn't survive outside the pod? Then finally, her eyes fluttered open, stunning amethyst orbs filled with confusion and fear. Callan raised his hands in what he hoped was a universal sign of peace. "It's okay," he said gently. "You're safe." The girl's lips parted, but no sound came out. She tried to sit up, her movements sluggish after years in stasis. He helped her, surprised at how fragile she felt. "Can you understand me?" he asked. She tilted her head, her brow furrowing in concentration. After a pause, she nodded hesitantly. "Do you have a name?" The girl's face crumpled, and she shook her head. Tears welled in her alien eyes, and Callan felt something tighten in his chest. Hey. "It's all right," he said softly. "How about Sora?" Her lips twitched into a small smile. She nodded again, more confidently this time. "Well, Sora," he said, "welcome aboard the Horizon. I'm Callan, and I guess that makes me your new guardian." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of adjustment. Callan scoured the ship's database for anything on her physiology, trying to determine what she could eat, how to regulate, the environment for her comfort, and, most frustratingly, how to communicate with her. Sora, for her part, was a quick learner. Her violet eyes watched Callan's every move, absorbing information at an astonishing rate. "All right, kiddo," Callan said one day, holding up a piece of synthesized fruit. "Can you say apple?" Sora furrowed her brow. Apple, she finally managed, her voice melodic and slightly unearthly. Callan grinned. "That's it. You got it. As the months passed, he found himself growing deeply attached to her. He marveled at her resilience, her curiosity, and the way her laughter filled the ship's corridors. He began to see the universe through her eyes, rediscovering the wonder he'd lost long ago. But something was different about her. On her 13th birthday, he witnessed something extraordinary. They were scavenging an old freighter for parts when the deck beneath Sora gave way. Callan's heart stopped, but instead of falling, she hovered, gently lowering herself to safety. "Sora," he whispered. "How did you do that?" She looked, just as shocked. I don't know," she admitted. "I just didn't want to fall, and then I didn't." From that moment on, he watched her more closely. Objects occasionally moved when she was deep in thought. Sometimes she responded to questions he hadn't asked aloud. It thrilled and terrified him in equal measure. By the time she was 16, her abilities had grown stronger, harder to control. "Dad," she said one evening, her voice serious, "I think I need to find out who I am." Callan sighed. "Sora, you know we have to be careful. There are people out there who—" "I know," she interrupted, "but I can't just keep running forever." He saw the determination in her eyes and realized he couldn't keep her hidden forever. "All right," he said. "We'll try, but we have to be careful." Her face lit up and she threw her arms around him. "Thank you. You won't regret this." He prayed she was right. Their decision was soon tested. As the horizon cruised through a quiet sector, alarms suddenly blared. 3 pirate ships emerged from a nearby asteroid field, weapons locked onto them. "Sora, get to the engine room. We need every ounce of power we've got." As she raced away, Callan's hands flew over the controls. But they were outgunned and outnumbered. A tractor beam latched onto them. Then something changed. Sora gasped, clutching her head as a wave of energy erupted from her. The pirate ships were flung back, their crews collapsing as their minds were overwhelmed. Callan stared in shock. "Sora, what did you do?" She collapsed, blood trickling from her nose. As he caught her, he knew. Their lives had just changed forever. Days later, as Sora recovered, the Federation intercepted them. "Unregistered vessel," a voice crackled over the comms. "You are harboring a dangerous entity. Surrender immediately." Callan's stomach twisted. They needed a place to hide. New Bastion, he muttered, but he knew. Running wouldn't be enough anymore. Sora's past had finally caught up with her, and the fate of the galaxy might just depend on what they did next. As the horizon sped toward New Bastion, Callan checked the sensors. The Federation cruiser was still trailing them, but it wasn't firing. "Not yet. They're waiting," he muttered. "For what?" Sora asked. "For us to make a mistake." New Bastion loomed ahead, a planet of sprawling slums, neon-lit black, markets, and underground hideouts. It was one of the few places where Federation authority held no power. But they weren't safe yet. Callan sent a coded signal as they descended. Within moments, an automated response came through, directing them to a landing pad deep inside Havoc Spire, an old mining colony repurposed into a criminal stronghold. As the ship touched down, Callan turned to Sora. "No sudden moves. No showing. Off your abilities. We keep our heads down, find a way to disappear, and figure out our next move." Sora nodded, but Callan saw the hesitation in her violet eyes. She was tired of running, so was he. They stepped onto the crowded streets of Havoc Spire, surrounded by a chaotic blend of alien merchants, smugglers, and bounty hunters. Callan kept a hand near his concealed blaster, scanning the crowd for threats. Then, a voice growled from the shadows. "You two look like you need help." Callan turned, hand tightening on his weapon. A hooded figure stepped forward, pulling back his cloak to reveal a scarred, weary face. Ronan Vex, an ex-Federation operative. a man Callan had crossed paths with years ago. Sora stiffened, sensing the tension between them. "What do you want, Vex?" Callan asked. "I'm not here for you," Ronan said, his gaze shifting to Sora. "I'm here for her." Callan instinctively moved in front of her. "Not happening." "I'm not your enemy," Ronan said. "But the Federation isn't the only one after the girl. There's someone else, a faction that's been looking for her kind for a long time." Sora's heart pounded. "Who?" Ronan hesitated, then spoke a name Callan hadn't heard in decades. "The Obsidian Order." Callan cursed under his breath. The Obsidian Order was a secretive faction obsessed with ancient alien technology, especially anything related to telepathic or energy-based abilities. And now, they were after Sora. Before Callan could respond, the sky above Havoc's spire lit up with blaster fire. The Federation cruiser had arrived, but they weren't alone. From the opposite horizon, sleek black warships descended, Obsidian Order attack craft. Sora's breath caught. "They found us!" Callan grabbed her wrist. "We need to move, now!" Explosions erupted as the two factions clashed overhead. Federation troops dropped from the skies, engaging the Order's cybernetic warriors in brutal street combat. And in the midst of it all, they wanted Sora. Callan, Sora, and Ronan sprinted through the chaos, dodging crossfire. The streets erupted into a full-blown battle, but there was no time to stop and take sides. Then, a dark figure stepped into their path, Obsidian General Kael Varos. "Surrender the girl," he ordered, his voice distorted through his blackened helm. "She belongs to us." Callan drew his blaster. "Like hell she does." Varos raised a gloved hand, and suddenly, Callan was lifted into the air, his body paralyzed by an unseen force. Sora felt it, Varos's power, his overwhelming mental grip crushing down on Callan's mind. "No!" A shockwave of violet energy exploded from her, sending Varos staggering backward. Callan dropped to the ground, gasping for air. Sora stood tall, her eyes glowing with raw power. "You want me?" she said, stepping forward. "Then come and get me." Varos smirked. "As you wish." The battle erupted. The fight was unlike anything Callan had ever seen. Varos was powerful. His telekinetic assaults tore through buildings. His energy, pulses shook the ground. But Sora was stronger. For the first time, she embraced her abilities, not just as an instinct, but as a choice. She didn't just fight back, she overpowered him. With one final burst of energy, Sora sent Varos flying backward, his body slamming into a crumbling tower. He didn't get up. Silence fell over the battlefield. The Federation forces, seeing Varos defeated, began to withdraw. The Obsidian Order, leaderless and in chaos, retreated into the void. Callan, still catching his breath, looked up at Sora. She was standing in the middle of it all, radiating power, her violet eyes burning with something new. Clarity. She turned to him. "I'm done running," she said softly. Callan swallowed hard, pride and fear warring in his chest. "What does that mean?" Sora exhaled, looking up at the stars. "It means I need to find out who I really am. I need to find others like me. And I can't do that by hiding." Callan's heart clenched. "You want to go out there alone?" She smiled and took his hand. "Not alone." 2 weeks later, aboard the Horizon, Callan and Sora stood together, watching the galaxy stretch out before them. The Federation had backed off, for now. The Obsidian Order had been crippled, but not destroyed. But Sora had made her decision. There were others out there, others like her, and she was going to find them. Callan sighed. "You sure about this, kiddo?" She grinned. "Would you have it any other way?" He chuckled. "Not a chance." Sora stepped forward, placing a hand on the controls. "Then let's go," she said. Callan smiled, reaching for the throttle. With a roar of engines, The horizon jumped into the stars. A new journey had begun.